Hello, lovely students. So today is a new day, and we are having a new video prepared for you. So today's topic is one of the most important topics in Grammar 3. It is the passive voice, right? The passive voice. Today is lesson number 8, and my name is Zania Rouif from Kurt Verboen. I'll be teaching you about passive voice today, and I hope you'll get benefit from it. Okay? So let's get started, okay? Let's start the whole thing together. So at the beginning, I'll give you some instructions regarding the difference between passive voice and active voice, okay? Starting from active voice. So active voice, the sentence. It's a sentence that has a subject, and the subject performs an action in the sentence, right? It performs an action in the sentence. So in this case, my subject is doing something, okay? So look at this example. Helen studied physics for her exam. So Helen did something. She studied, right? Physics. Helen is the person who is studying physics for her exam, right? So Helen is doing something. She is performing an action, right? So this is the active voice. What about the passive voice? It is a sentence in which the subject has an action done on it by someone or something else. So in this case, the subject is not doing something. Something is being done on the subject, right? So it changes the way the sentence works. So the cat is my subject, right? The cat. The car was hit by a truck on the road. The car didn't do anything. The truck hit the cat, right? The truck hit the cat. But I use passive voice for some reasons I'll explain later. In the beginning of the sentence. So the object, the real object of the sentence here, the subject, and it was hit by a truck on the road. So the truck hit the cat. The cat had something done on it, which was being hit, right? So this is a general definition of the passive voice, okay, and the active voice. So and before we go any further into the passive voice, I would like to explain to you the difference between the transitive and the intransitive verbs. Okay, the difference between them is very important. So a transitive verb is a verb that can take a direct object, right? In the English language, we have two different types of verbs: transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. Some verbs cannot really take an object, right? But some others can. So the transitive verbs are the verbs that can take a direct object. The cat ate the mouse. The cat ate something, right? This is the object. The thing the cat ate, right? It takes the object on pretty easily. The verb ate. And if a verb is transitive, some verbs in the English language can change. Sometimes they are transitive, and sometimes they are intransitive. But you don't really need to know that part of it. All you need to know is how to distinguish between them in a sentence, right? The second sentence: the firefighter extinguished the fire, right? Extinguished something. So we have a noun right after the verb, right? Right after the verb. If you have a noun after the verb, then it is a transitive verb, okay? But the intransitive verbs are verbs that cannot take a direct object. So I'm sorry about that mistake. The verbs that cannot take a direct object. Look at this example. I always sing in the bathroom. I sing, right? I always sing in the bathroom. So singing can be transitive and intransitive, but in this case it's intransitive. As you see, there is no noun here. I have a preposition, then a noun. So because of that, it's an intransitive verb. And I'll tell you why it is useful to differentiate between transitive and intransitive verbs. My second example: my friend wanted to leave early last night. So wanted, I have another verb right after it, right? And after that I have another verb. So I don't have a noun in the sentence. It makes it an intransitive verb because these verbs don't take objects in this in this specific sentence, okay, in this specific case. Okay, so let's go to passive, okay. Um, but before that, let me note something here. The transitive verbs can become passive, okay, but the intransitive intransitive verbs, I'm sorry, can never be passive because they don't have an object, right? They don't have an object, okay? So that was kind of important there. So why do we need passive, right? Why do we need to have passive, right? What is passive? The sentence that its subject is not clear or not given to the audience. Sometimes it's given through an agent, but not always, okay? So there are reasons for all of that, okay? We use passive when the most important element focused on in the sentence is the subject, right? So when we want the subject of the sentence, or in this case, the older object, which I will explain in the sentence, we want to focus on that part of the sentence. So look at this example. If I say, the hunter killed the beautiful bird, right? My focus here is on the hunter, because the hunter is my subject, right? Killed the beautiful bird. What about me wanting to focus on the beautiful bird? What do I say? So it is the beautiful bird was killed, right? I don't care about the hunter. It doesn't matter. What matters is the beautiful bird being killed, right? So in that case, I care about the bird being killed, not about the hunter killing the beautiful bird, right? So the focus changes, the stress of the sentence, and the concentration of the speaker or the writer changes, right? So it's one usage of it. The second one is the doer of the action is unknown. I don't know who did it, right? I don't know the subject. I do not know the real subject. My uncle had been killed in the war before I was born. I don't know who killed my uncle. I don't know it, right? So I'm not gonna say someone killed it because I don't know who it is. So I'm gonna focus on my uncle first because it's an important topic, and because I don't know who killed it, I just can't create an active voice sentence, right? I can't do it because I don't have a subject. The masterpiece was stolen during the ceremony, right? So there was a masterpiece, a painting or whatever. It was a masterpiece, a very good piece, and it was stolen. I don't know who stole it. I know it's a thief, but it doesn't really add up anything to the sentence. And my focus is as well. My focus is on the masterpiece being stolen, not on the person stealing it. So I'm just gonna put it in the beginning of the sentence, and I don't know who stole it. So I'm just gonna use the object as a subject in this case. Or my third use of it is the doer of the action, the subject, right? Is obvious, right? It's very easy to know who, right? It's not necessary really to put it on. The criminal was arrested last night, right? The criminal, a bad person. The bad person was arrested last night. We all know who arrested him, right? The police. I don't have to say the police arrested the criminal, right? Because it's obvious, right? It's very easy to know. So I'm not going to mention it. Or the fire in the building was controlled after hours of work. The fire was in the building was controlled, right? I'm using the passive voice because I know who controlled the fire. It's obvious, right? The firefighters, right? I don't have to mention that, right? So because it's too obvious, I'm just gonna end up not mentioning it, okay? So what is the structure of a passive voice sentence? And I'll have some notes here as well. So the passive voice can only be constructed using transitive verbs, okay? So you learn these verbs through experience, but the most important thing is that the verb should be transitive first. Then you can create passive. And the reason is because it has an object, okay? We need both an object and a subject in a passive voice sentence. The second thing is the object in the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice, and this is pretty important. I'll give you an example right here. Whatever is the object in the active voice, the object is a noun that comes right after the verb, okay? Will be the subject in the passive voice, okay? And the subject of the action voice, the active voice, I'm sorry, becomes the object of the word by in the passive voice, okay? which is important. Is, you know, the by agent is important. So look at this example. The engineer has fixed the car in the garage. So the engineer is the subject. This is active voice, right? So this is my active voice, correct? So my active voice sentence is this one, right? This is a subject, right? The engineer is my subject because it's in the beginning of the sentence and it's doing some action. Fix the car, right? Fixed the car, right? So the car has come right after the verb, so it is my object, right? So this is my object. In the garage is my just a complementary part of the sentence. So this was active voice. Look at the passive voice sentence. The car has become the subject, right? Has been fixed by the engineer. So you see, by the engineer. So this part, by the engineer, right? Just like here, by is my preposition, and the engineer is the object of that preposition, or the object of the sentence in a sense. So as you see, we reversed it. We reversed the car from being an object here to being a subject here, and also the engineer being a subject in the active voice sentence to an object in the passive voice sentence. Okay, and one last note is that the past participle form of the verb is always used. Okay, so what's the past participle? It's the form of the verb, the third form of the verb, right? So read, 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 right? Fix, fixed, fixed. Open, opened, opened, right? Teach, taught, taught, right? Become, became, become. That last one, the third one, is your past participle, or the participle form of the verb, okay? The PP, we call it. Alright, so let's go into some rules and how it works, right? So you've already been exposed to present simple, present progressive, or present continuous, past simple, past continuous, present perfect, past perfect, future simple, right? You've been exposed to all of this, and you know the rules. But now I'll give you the rules for the passive voice. All you studied before was the active voice, but now we will go into the passive voice a little bit. So present simple, we have for the passive voice, I'll give you examples as well. We have the subject, right? Then we have is, and are, one of them, depending on the subject, and the verb pp, the past participle form of the verb. Very easy, present simple, right? For present progressive, we have the subject, is, are, and been. This is always there, right? The been should always be there, plus the verb, past participle, right? For past simple, we have the subject, was, and were, one of them. If it is plural, it is were. If it is singular, the subject, then it is was. Then we have the past participle form of the verb, okay? We also have past progressive. In past progressive, when we use the passive voice, we have a subject, was and were, then been. Been is always there, okay? Don't forget. It adds the element of continuity, of progress into the passive voice, because you have to keep everything into the passive voice. It should still be present or past progressive in this case, okay? We also have the verb always. This is always the case, as you see, as I told you, as I noted. You always need the verb to be in past participle, okay? We also have present perfect, which in which you have the subject, has and have, according to the subject, and been. Been is always there, okay? Plus the verb, okay? Or for past perfect, you have the subject, it's always had, and you always need been. Plus the verb. For future simple, you have the subject, will, and be is always there, right? They don't change. So remember these, okay? You need to remember these to be able to use them. You need a lot of practice, actually, alright? So I'll give you examples, okay? my examples is for every case. I have the cases here. I'll give you the active voice and the passive voice. So the one in blue, light blue, is active voice, and the one in, what is that color? Is that brownish, or, well, I don't know colors. I think that's brownish, or brown, it's called brown, is the passive voice, okay? So first of all is present simple. In present simple, it's pretty simple, right? You remember this from grammar 1, I hope. We have a subject, Danny studies English, right? Danny studies English. So this is my sentence. When I change it to passive voice, I have my object here. These are all transitive verbs, right? Because we can only have transitive verbs to create passive voice. My object is English, right? Because it's my object in my active voice, it should be my subject in my passive voice, right? So it changes to the subject here. And Danny is my subject here. It changes to object in my passive voice, okay? So how do I change that? So subject, verb s or es, if you remember, plus the object. Here, subject, English is the subject, is, then the verb pp, the past participle of the verb, right? The past participle of the verb. Then by, right, by agent. We always add this if necessary, actually if necessary. So it's up to you, up to the sentence. If you want to mention it, I can just ignore this part, okay? You can delete it. But sometimes it's necessary to say it according to what you were trying to say and the focus of your sentence. That is for present simple, right? So subject is verb, right? Subject is verb. So subject is verb. I used is because my subject was a he, right? A singular he. So I can use that, okay? Because it was Danny, a person, right? A boy. The second one is present progressive. Haman is the name of the person, weird, is doing the dishes, right? Haman is doing the dishes. Is doing is my present progressive form. Subject is are, verb ing, and object, right? So my object here is the dishes. As you can see, I reverse it to a subject in my passive voice. So the dishes are being done. This being, as I told you before, always stays there, okay? It should always be there, alright? So the dishes are being done, and the verb is do. So I change the verb do to past participle form. Here I change the verb study to the past participle form. My third example is for past simple. So my mom made the cake. Made is my past simple form. The cake is my object. So it should be my subject here, right? It becomes it becomes my subject here, right? The cake. And was, we add was to it, or where, because cake is singular, so we add was. And the verb is past participle by my mom. I have by agent. The by agent is here. My mom was a subject here, but it becomes object here, object of the preposition by. What about past progressive? Kanar was cleaning the mirror. So was cleaning I have in my past progressive form of sentence. The mirror is my object. So when I change it to passive, it becomes my subject, right? The mirror was being, right? The being is still there. It doesn't change, as I explained that part to you before. All right. Okay. So what about my next example? I have present perfect example. The boss has told the truth to the employees. Has told something. So this is my object because it comes right after the verb. Here it has become my subject, even though it's an object here, because when you change it to passive, it becomes an object, right? Has been told. This been is always there, right? It doesn't change, as I mentioned it here, right? In this case. So It doesn't change. So the truth is my object. It becomes subject here. Has been told. So told here is my verb, and the past participle is the same because I have a perfect tense here, so it doesn't really change to the employees, right? And this is the end of the sentence. But what about past perfect? I have the plumber had installed the new pipes, right? Had installed the new pipes. So when I change it to passive voice, the plumber had installed something. So this something, this part, the new pipes, is my object, right? So it becomes a subject, right? The new pipes is my subject here. Had been, right, installed. I don't care about the plumber here. I don't talk about it, right? It's not my focus. I can say by the plumber, but I don't have to, right? My last one is for a future simple sentence. So Mr. Adam will teach mathematics. This is my active voice sentence. Will teach something. That thing is mathematics. So this is my object. It becomes my subject here, right? Mathematics will be taught. Be is my unchanged part here, as I told you before. Being taught. Taught is my past participle verb. Teach becomes taught. By sorry, by Mr. Adam, right? By Mr. Adam, so by agent, right? So this is all about passive voice. Please practice it and please try to remember these rules, okay? Because they are important, okay? Don't memorize them all over, but try to remember them and use them and learn them gradually. So good luck with your practice. I hope you will practice, and this is my email. You can always email me. My name is Zaniar from Kutferbun, and I will always be happy to help you, okay? Please enjoy your time and thanks for listening.